Hi, welcome to my vlog. Today I will be talking about a reflection that I wrote about the lectures that I followed for my minor storytelling. I will be taking out 3 of my highlights, the things that stayed with me the most. First of all, I want to talk about storytelling. I did it like this because I don't have a printer. But this is my visualization of my first highlight, which is storytelling. What were my first highlights? I found it very interesting to talk about the history of storytelling. I really like to hear that it's something that it's not like recently developed, even though it sounds like it's new, but it's something that that it has been developed like years and years, like decades ago, which I find very interesting to hear that it started off with, for example, stories that they told around the campfire, and they switched from a campfire to, for example, social media. Storytelling developed in games, in theme parks. So that was really interesting for me to hear, because I would describe storytelling more as something that has been like a recent trend, but it's really nice to hear that it's been something that's been developing over the past years. My second highlight is the Van Gogh experience. I find it very interesting to hear that a person like Van Gogh has actually been living a lot here in the Netherlands. To be honest, I wasn't really familiar with, like, I know who he is, but I didn't really know his past or where he lived. So it was really interesting to hear that a person this famous has been living here in the Netherlands, and that with those locations that they can actually like take you through his life, and I found that very interesting. I find it very interesting as well to hear that our lecturer, Monique Hover, actually has developed this with a team, so that was really nice to see that she actually participated in this, such as she did with a lot of projects. And my third highlight was the Crossroads Brabant. What I found very interesting about this is that I'm always very interested with war stories, and to see how you can make a location that looks very normal right now, like a place that just looks like, for example, a farm, that when you scan a code that you can actually see a story that happened there. So people tell their stories. She gave an example of a woman that went to the location where her husband died years later, and it was so beautiful to see, and I thought it was breathtaking that with the technology nowadays that we can actually create such a beautiful experience for people to keep that part of history alive, especially when we are like the younger generation didn't really grow up with this. So I think it's really interesting to see how storytelling can be implementing in such a meaningful way. So that storytelling is my first highlight. Then I'm going to my second highlight, which is the lecture about sustainability. Why I find this interesting is because sustainability is something that is really growing right now. As you can see, my first highlight is more than a trend. As I mentioned in my reflections, I think it's more than just a trend. Like we used to call it trends and developments, and then we would talk about sustainability. But I think nowadays it's more a norm or a value that you participate something with sustainability. It's not just saying you're sustainable or just having a few extra bins, but it's more getting normal that you have to do something like contribute to sustainability. My second highlight was greenwashing. It wasn't really like a highlight, but it was more that it was a bit shocking to me. I never heard of it before, that greenwashing is actually a thing where companies tell you that they're so sustainable and that they have a contribution in sustainability, while actually they're just claiming these things, and it's all a lie. It's not real. So to me, that was a bit shocking that that actually happens. They gave the example of Shell, which is an oil company, which was already weird to me. Like, how can they be sustainable? But they are like a good example of a company that just claims to be sustainable, whereas they don't do anything about it, which I think is very weird that actual companies do that. And my second or my third highlight is the fact that this whole lecture was very helpful for my graduation assignment, because my graduation company will be focusing a lot already on sustainable contribution. So I find it very interesting to get some new examples of how to be sustainable and how to interpret sustainability into an event or a company. So that was really helpful to me personally. And my third highlight was a social innovation lecture. Why I found this so interesting is because I went into it a little bit blank. We didn't really have any information before on social media in any of our lectures or anything. So to me it was really new, and therefore also very interesting to see what this lecture was about. Yeah, so for me the first highlight was that it was a new topic, so I actually got to learn something that I didn't really know anything about before. Which, yeah, it was really interesting to me because it is a whole different track, and it was really nice to actually get a little bit more insight on what that track was about. My second highlight was the example they gave on My Neighborhood, where they created a platform where people in a neighborhood can actually meet each other and find each other based on same interests they have, or certain things they do, or maybe on work. This promotes and supports the fact that people can come together more often in the same neighborhood, and that revolved into new neighbor locations, or like common areas, or more like organized events, for example, within the neighborhood. So I found that very interesting to see how such a simple idea actually can really help support a neighborhood. My third highlight was the social value. I think it is a very unappreciated or like underdeveloped thought to see that this actually should be implemented a lot more, the social value, to see that it's really growing, and that yeah, that was also like my last highlight. I thought it was really nice to see how upcoming this is, and that it's something that we think, or at least I thought that it was very normal already, that we use social value more often, but it was really surprising to me to hear that it was quite new and that it's really upcoming and really in development. So I think it's something to really keep in mind also as a professional, or an almost professional event manager. I think this lecture really helped me with taking that into consideration when I go work later. It probably won't really link to my graduation assignment, but I do think I can use certain aspects and create that into my event. So those were my highlights. This was for the reflections for my minor storytelling, and I hope you liked it. Bye!